best performing and stable industries in the country. It actually accounts for 9.5% of our GDP. They are ambitious entrepreneurs who wish to take up opportunities in tourism, but don't necessarily know how to navigate the sector as they feel that it's oversaturated with big companies that get all the visitors. Anton Roelofse from the Business Partners Limited says this is not true, and he joins me now from our Sea Pint studios in Cape Town. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us, how does one enter the tourism industry?
I think it's very much an untapped industry. At the moment, we see growth rates in the industry of about 10%. You spoke about the GDP. Now, growth rate of 10% in a country where we won't even see 1%, I think that tells you a lot about this industry. And having that growth rate, it opens up a lot of opportunities in the industry. Certain of the sectors in the industry are more capital intensive than others, but there's a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs where it's not that capital intensive to get involved in the industry. But to get involved, you need to have the passion. You need to have a certain type of personality if you're going to get involved in certain aspects of the tourism industry. Competition is a big barrier to entry. The cheaper it is to start a business, the more the competition is going to be. But we know entrepreneurs are very resilient and they will find ways around it. Another challenge for entrepreneurs will be capital. Access to finance is a problem for the tourism industry, but there's enough money available for entrepreneurs with good business ideas.
Now, you just touched on competition as one of the biggest barriers to entry. Now, which part of the industry you feel is still untapped at this point? I mean, we're talking about ecotourism, we're talking about adventure tourism. Just which area do you think ambitious entrepreneurs could focus on?
I think if you look at the industry, accommodation is a big part of this industry. Very important to bear in mind what I've said is the 10% growth. And if you've got 10% growth, opportunities opens up everywhere, even in the big business. But to come back to the question of the smaller businesses, adventure tourism is definitely one of the areas where you can get involved. Social tourism is something that's growing very fast in South Africa. We also see tour operators, smaller tour operators seeing the light. And I think even things like restaurants focusing specially on tourism, I think they are all doing very, very well.
I'm actually glad, Anton, you touched on the issue of tour operators. Let's now talk about job creation. Now, many of these tour operators are seasonal and require labor only when needed. That clearly is a challenge to full-time employment, don't you think?
Yeah, but I think what's also important to understand is that tourism in most parts of South Africa has become a full-time employment. If one is going to have a look at the statistics, 4.5% of all people employed in South Africa are directly employed in the tourism industry. If you put it differently, 1 out of every 25 people employed in South Africa are employed in the tourism industry. So you might have some seasonality, but in general, we see a lot more over year-round employment in the industry, much more of a permanent nature.
All right. Now, Anton, if I've got a brilliant business idea and I don't have the funding, where can I go for education and training?
I think there's a couple of avenues open to you. If you're one of the people lucky enough to qualify for finance from our normal banks, that is certainly the way to go. Obviously, always the cheapest is your own capital, but I guess it's not that easy to put 10 or 20 million together of your own capital. But then there is niche financiers like business partners, like your IDC. They're all available to approach. You must go there with a very viable business plan and make them believe that you are the right person to invest into. I think just very importantly also on the financing aspect, as I said earlier on, it is very capital intensive. If it's very capital intensive, you're going to need a large amount of your own funding to go into that business to make it cash flow positive from day one. So that's also unfortunately one of those barriers to entry is own contribution.
I know South Africa as a whole is a tourism hotspot. So which province do you think in particular should ambitious or budding entrepreneurs focus on?
I think one must have a look at where's the opportunities. Yeah, we do see certain areas like the Lowveld, the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, the Garden Route. There is areas that are more tourism friendly than others, but then you will find at the strangest places opportunities opening up for tourism. So I think it's, as I said earlier on, I think it's throughout South Africa, but you've got certain hotspots like the Mother City, like the Lowveld, but in Joburg itself, there's a number of opportunities available.
All right, Anton, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting to you. That was Anton Roelofse from the Business Partners Limited coming to us live from Cape Town studios. Well, time for a break now, and Morning Live will be back right after this.